There's a lot that happened this week in the first week of 2024. And relative to the investment world, it's going to have some tremendous ramifications. I discussed this with my tribe earlier this evening on our Friday Stock Talk, and I thought it was important enough that I needed to make it public. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. I want to speak to, number one, the world's security situation as North Korea provided some ballistic missiles to Russia. And as I have pieced the whole puzzle together, it's in exchange for oil that Russia started selling to North Korea in April of 2023. Now that is going to have some ramifications relative to how the United States is going to position itself as to secure and to maintain its position as a world power. As an investor, this is important to me because I see the importance of the United States maintaining its power as the superpower of the world, and it's what's going to happen in the next couple of months is extremely important. Beyond the fact that ballistic missiles are being exchanged for oil from North Korea to Russia, we have a situation where the stock market is reacting. We had a tremendous run-up of 20-some% in the last 60 days of the year, and now we're experiencing a contraction in the first week of 3%. If that continues, as I suspect it will, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a pullback, which is going to create a tremendous investment opportunity. All of this is being driven by artificial intelligence and the importance of semiconductors in the world. I want to share with you what I believe, as I did with my tribe, a series of 7 stocks that I think you have to keep your eye on and recognize there's going to be a buying opportunity that has never been presented to you in the past, which you can then profit from. So with all that in mind, let me get right into my video that I recorded as I explained all this the first week of 2024 to my tribe. This is a website you ought to take a note of. It's called semiconductors.org, U.S. Semiconductor Ecosystem Map. I was unaware of this, but all those dots are foundries. All those dots represent foundries, and a foundry in the terms of semiconductors is where they make semiconductors. This is where they have probably one of the ASML machines, and they are printing semiconductors and selling them around the world. I became aware of this as I was doing my research and reading my book. I came across that company, Skywater. Never had heard of it. It's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's right down the road from where I used to live in Minneapolis. Then I looked there. Oh my God, they're in Indiana as well, West Lafayette. I suspect that's because Purdue University has a very strong program in semiconductors. And then I went down here to Florida, and there they are there as well. Then I got to reading, and I read that the Biden CHIP Act just awarded $162 billion to a company out of Rhode Island by the name of Macrochips Technology to entice them to beef up and accelerate their chip program. I thought, wow, that's a big deal, $162 million. So I went and I looked at what their revenues were for last year, and their revenues were $8.4 billion. So that 162 represents no, that's their revenue. So that represents 2% of their revenues next year. So I guess it's not really that big a deal, but it was press worthy, and we saw a lot about it. But I want I want you to recognize that we have a lot of people. Intel is all over the place, and they manufacture semiconductors. Now, what you need to know is Intel is losing their market share, and that is because Intel basically recognized what Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were doing, and that they were making these things called PCs, and they needed a microchip in their PCs to run them. And they captured the market. Then somewhere in the 2000s, Apple and several other people came out with something called a smartphone, and Intel said, that'll never take off. That'll never be a part of our economy. We're going to stay with PCs. And that's why Intel is now the third largest chip maker in the world, behind Taiwan Semiconductor and Samsung. They're third in line. Now, if you are following Intel stock, you know it's really up this year. And they put the icing on the cake on that just last month when they introduced their high-powered CPU chip and a GPU chip, which they project will compete with Intel's. So you need to know this, and you need to go explore who are these companies and how big are they, and are they somebody that I want to be involved with? Well, let me give you again some understanding. In the United States, Intel is the biggest. Actually, they're not. Intel, in cumulative, their biggest plant is in Hillsboro, Oregon. I guess that's probably up here someplace. Yeah, there it is. How about that? I know my map. They have 19,300 employees there. Now, I'm not sure where New Hampshire is. But anyway, that's where Microchip is. They have 22,600 employees. So they're a sizable company. So if you want to be involved in this ecosystem, it's important you understand what this map is all about. Now, I want you to show you something else, though. This is just the foundries. These are fabless. What are fabless? Those are the people who designed the chips. They're going to be all over. But I want you to see that's our exposure to semiconductors in the United States. You'll notice Nevada, North Dakota, I guess that would be, North and South Dakota, and Mississippi, and that must be, is that West Virginia? No, that's West Virginia. I'm not sure. Pennsylvania, that's Pennsylvania. What is that? Anyway, there's nobody there. So be aware of that and put it into your thinking. Along the line of chips, something else you need to realize. I don't know if you read just recently that Putin, Russia, has bought ballistic missiles from South Korea. This is important. Now, I got the North Korea bought ballistic missiles. What is a ballistic missile? That's the first thing you need to know. A ballistic missile is a missile you put up in the air and you get it up above our atmosphere where the air is thin and the resistance is little, and you just let it go in orbit, and then you tell it when to launch at the target you have programmed it to launch to. Now, Russia put out one of those ballistic missiles just last week, and Ukraine found it in a field. Okay? Russia has been shooting missiles at Ukraine for years, or for the last 2 years, and when we find them, we tear them apart and we look at them, and we find out that 2/3 of the parts in them came from those companies. 2/3 of the parts of the missiles that Russia is throwing into Ukraine come out of the United States. There's a black market in parts for semiconductors. We need to know that. Now, another thing that struck me as strange is Why has South Korea or North Korea been selling missiles to Russia for a long time? No. So I thought, well, how are they paying for them? In April of this year was the first time Russia shipped any crude oil to North Korea. They shipped them, let me see, so many barrels, 67,300 barrels in April. A barrel cost $75. So they got a credit for $5 million. A ballistic missile from South Korea costs $10 million. So they just got built up enough credit to buy five ballistic missiles from Korea. This is important because the other thing that if you listen, you remember, we just celebrated the first or the second anniversary of where we launched a ballistic missile to a high-ranking official in Moscow and hit the roof of his car and killed him. You remember that? It was in the news. We just celebrated the first or second celebration. That's what a real ballistic missile is. That's what a guided missile is. Russia shot a ballistic missile into Ukraine, and they found it in a field. The difference in warfare from this day forward is semiconductors. We can hit the roof of a car adjacent to the Kremlin and kill a man who was plotting against the United States. He had just left his daughter's home. That's the difference in warfare from this point on. We have to make sure, and that is why you've also heard that the ASML has been forbidden to sell any machines that can make that kind of a semiconductor to China. This is where the world is right now. So I think that's important information. The other thing I think I want to put into perspective is what happened in 2023 relative to the NASDAQ market. From October the 27th, the NASDAQ was at 12,643. On December the 26th, it was at 15,074. That's a 19% increase in the NASDAQ market in 60 days. Now, wow, it's down 3% in the first week of this year. And I think it's going further. The other thing you need to put into perspective is on December the 15th of 2021, that's 2 years earlier, the NASDAQ was at 15,630. Let me refresh. On December the 26th last year, it was at 15,074. So in December of 2021, it was 3% higher than it closed this year. What's changed in those 2 years? Well, the first thing that came to my mind was artificial intelligence. There was no artificial intelligence that we were aware of, that the market was aware of in December 2021. And yet, the market was higher than it was at the celebrated close of December 26th. And then it lost 3% in the first week. I think it's going lower. And I think it's going substantially lower. So I am investing accordingly. Then what I wanted to do today was give you a list of stocks I think you need to be watching very, very closely and tracking and put on your watch list from now through the next 3 months. And on the top of that, I'm going to put SYM. I think the market doesn't realize what these people are doing. This is the Symbotics. This is the company that is making robots with artificial intelligence as fast as they can for Target, Walmart, and Appleton's supermarkets. And they have a backlog of 2 years of orders. Come automate our warehouses. And the stock is giving us some buy-in opportunities. I have a buy-in price, and you'll see that. Let me take you to my other screen. This is my Bus 12 and Bus 13 portfolios. And as I said, SYM is down here, and I have a buy price on it of $37.86. It's within 12% of that price right now. It's currently at $43.39. This is a stock you want to buy. I need to also tell you, I'm at 80% cash. I went and at Mark's insistence and put stop loss orders as we entered the end of the year on all my stocks. And I got stopped out of most of them. That's a good thing. I'll pay the taxes. I don't care. Another stock you need to keep an eye on is Palantir. Palantir is going down. I have a buy-in price of $13.70. One of the major houses, I think it was Jefferies, just came out today and says I'm overpriced. It's going to go for $12. But Palantir is going to be a major player in the use of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. Another one I want you to look at is Google. Google is within 5.73% of its support level. Its support level is at $29.52. It's currently selling at $137. I believe I'll buy it at that price. Okay? Then I want to go to one of my favorite stocks, AEHR, who's been getting beat up this past week. And thank you for doing that for us, market. I almost bought it, was able to buy it today at $22.15, but it didn't get down to it. The analysts and I believe the fair price on that stock before the year is over will be $60 because they're anticipating their growth in their earnings this year is 77.97%. They will come out with their earnings for the final quarter of on, I believe it's January the 9th. And if you go and look for their revisions in their earnings, they're holding at that. And then they're anticipating a 65% growth in earnings per share. And focus on earnings per share. Do not focus on earnings. I can be AEHR and double my earnings by going and buying my number one competition by issuing more stock. Okay? And by diluting my stock, I may increase my earnings, but that don't mean nothing to you and I because there's twice as many shares out there. That's not what AEHR is, not diluting their earnings. So you always want to track earnings per share, not earnings, not revenue, earnings per share, because the company is in business to make you and I, the stockholders, money. That's why they're in business. Intel, as I showed you on that map, Intel is all over the map for building new foundries. They've got two of them going up right outside of Columbus, Ohio, and they've got another one going up in Arizona, I believe it is. They're quite a ways from my buy-in price. Intel, I have a buy-in price of $37.36. They're currently at $46.89. That's where they closed today. But Intel is anticipating a 100.1% growth in their earnings in 2024, followed by a 42% growth in their earnings per share in 2025. This is what you need to focus on. So then the other stock I want you to put on your radar, I don't own it yet, and that is Skywater. This is a company who has a technology that, and also understand their market is 90% the U.S. military, okay? And based on what I just told you about who's going to win the wars in the future, this is a company you want to watch. I'm not ready to buy it. I believe I'll be able to buy it for $5.28 or thereabouts. And I believe it'll go somewhere for up over the next year for $13 to $11.69. That would give it. That's based on a earnings growth in 24 earnings per share from a negative 32 cents to a positive 11. That's 134% increase in earnings per share. And then they're anticipating in 25 that will go to 72 cents a share, and that's a 554% increase in earnings. This is how you need to analyze stocks. I got an email today from Homer who basically said I needed to look at such and such and such and such in such and such. No, I don't have time for it. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm a neurosurgeon. I'm not going to mess with my wife's leg. Okay? I am going to know more about what's going on in this world of semiconductors, and I'm going to understand what every one of those plants do, and I'm going to follow them to find out what our government has to do to get us in the ballgame. Because if we aren't in that, if China invades Taiwan, we don't have the semiconductors to guide our missiles. We don't have them. We don't have access to them. Unless maybe we can get them from Samsung out of South Korea. So this is the future, or at least the very near future. I watched, as I had lunch today with Nita, I watched the Squawk Box or CNBC, and they're saying, next year is all about big industry. Tech can't go forward. Well, folks, the S&P was higher on December 21st, or the end of December 2021, than it is today. And we didn't have artificial intelligence. And we didn't have the development of semiconductors that we have today. So that's where I'm at. I'm happy with it. I want you, if you don't have access to this, shame on you. I change it every day. I come in, I do my research, I change these prices. If you can't make $60 a month off of this chart alone, shame on you.